Vivi, Carrot, Yamato, and now Bonney. These are the amazing characters that Oda has had fun teasing us about being the next Straw Hat. But for most of these, we've been left blue-balled. Although Vivi is an honorary Straw Hat, we've been waiting for her to join for 1,000 chapters. Carrot stands are patiently waiting for Oda to reveal he was hiding her on the Sunny this whole time, and we are still waiting. Yamato was the one that broke my heart the most. She was special. Not only was she a great fighter, but she even bathed with the crew. I was sure then Oda would let her join, but he blue balls us once again. Now the latest and greatest case is Bonney. I know. Bonney does seem like the perfect Straw Hat. She has a great backstory, she spent time with the crew, and even Sanji has saved her on multiple occasions, and there's no doubt she gets the stamp of approval from Luffy, especially after he's called her by her full name, something Luffy rarely does unless you're a Nakama. Nonetheless, I fear history will repeat itself once again. Not because I feel like she's not worthy to be a Straw Hat, rather I feel like she is more of a standalone character, and making her a Straw Hat would decrease her value. It would be like Momo becoming a Straw Hat, or if Law became a Straw Hat. These two characters remind me of Bonnie's role the most because these characters have value beyond their connection to Luffy. Nonetheless, they traveled on Luffy's ship for multiple arcs, and although they are Nakama, they were not Straw Hats in the truest sense. This to me is Bonnie's fate as a character, someone who would travel with the Straw Hats but not exactly become a Straw Hat. Another major reason why she can't be a Straw Hat is her age. Hopefully everyone remembers that Luffy denied Otama because she was too young, which is a callback to how Luffy was denied by Shanks because he was too young. This is an ideal that Luffy learned from Shanks, and I don't believe Bonnie's Devil Fruit will provide us with a loophole here. Although we know Bonney is strong, she is again just a child. She is not at the mental age to become a pirate on a Yonko crew, and I believe Luffy will be consistent in the ideology he's learned from Shanks and has already put into practice with Otama. Although I do believe she will be on the ship for a period of time, just like Momo. Especially since the world government will never let her live in peace since she has the highest control hierarchy for the Pacifista. So okay, if not Bonney, and if not none of the women I've mentioned, who would be the next Straw Hat? Well, the answer may surprise you because I believe that is Oda's intention, to catch us by surprise. The next Straw Hat is someone that makes the most sense, but most of us didn't even begin to consider. The next Straw Hat is none other than Dr. Vegapunk. But no, not the Stella, I mean a very specific satellite. The next Straw Hat will be Punk 02 Lilith the Evil. I have a theory that Oda has always intended for Lilith to be the next Straw Hat, and there's clues written all over Egghead. Stick around with me throughout the whole video so I can convince you that this amazing genius woman will be the perfect fit for Nakama. But before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe and turn on that bell notification to look forward to the greatest One Piece theories of all time. So why Lilith? Amongst all the other blue balls Oda has given us, why choose someone he seemingly hardly set up to be the next Straw Hat? Well, it primarily has to do with a very important narrative theme that Oda always uses for new Straw Hats, a theme that most people may not have yet caught on to. But it's something that is consistent with the portrayal of everyone Luffy has chosen to be a Nakama. You see, usually new Straw Hats are portrayed as chaotic and almost villainous. Let's take the very first Straw Hat for example, Roronoa Zoro, our first mate. Zoro is a picture-perfect example of this. Starting from the first time we hear about him from Kobe, Zoro is portrayed as an untamable demonic beast. Although we know Zoro is a kind person, it's unclear at the start until Luffy sees him eating the little girl's rice balls. The Straw Hats are always portrayed to be untamable demons up until Luffy comes along and makes it obvious that they are misunderstood, chaotic, good characters. This was also consistent with Usopp, who is seen as the troublemaker of his village. Sanji, who's portrayed as this insufferable cook who beats up his guests. Nami, who's portrayed as a money-hungry witch who will betray you at any given notice. Chopper, who was portrayed as a monster. Robin, who was a literal arc antagonist. Frankie, who was also an arc antagonist and portrayed to be the most troublesome man in Water 7. Brook, who was also a literal demon. And last but not least, Jinbei, who we literally meet in jail. It is a consistent theme that the Straw Hats can be interpreted as the enemy at the beginning of their introductions. Speaking of being portrayed as an enemy at the beginning of their introductions, Lilith is the first Vegapunk we meet in Egghead, who the crew at that point thought was an enemy. Even the people we thought were going to be Straw Hats had this similar portrayal. When we first meet Vivi, she was an undercover Baroque Works agent who we thought was an enemy. When we first meet Carrot, she is literally clashing against Zoro. This is also consistent with Yamato, who clashed with Luffy. But if this theme is consistent with the others, why is it Lilith then who will succeed where the others failed in becoming a Straw Hat? Well, Lilith has something going for her that the others do not. See, with the others, the reason that they couldn't join Luffy on the crew is that they had unresolved obligations at home. With Vivi, she had the responsibilities of ruling a whole kingdom. Carrot is now in the same boat, and Yamato had dedicated herself to protecting Wano. But Lilith will have no such obligations to stay back on Egghead. I mean, half of Egghead is already damn near destroyed. It's almost certain by the end of this arc, the Buster Call will reduce Egghead to rubble, so there will be no home to go back to. Besides, the Vegapunks have already been invited on the Straw Hat ship, so Lilith is already a shoe-in to travel with the crew. But okay, I know what you're thinking. Why only Lilith? Why not all the other satellites are candidates for being a Straw Hat? Well, it is my hypothesis that the other satellites won't survive by the end of this arc. Although we have 5 satellites alive right now, most of them have already been injured and one of them has been killed. Think about it, Edison was nearly killed by S-Shark. Pythagoras was also nearly killed by S-Snake. Atlas was nearly killed by Lucci. Shaka was killed by York, and York has been captured by the Straw Hats. But did you notice, out of all of the satellites that have been injured or killed, Lilith has yet to be injured at all. The only close encounter she had was when S-Hawk nearly sliced her, but he was countered by Zoro. She also had a close call when S-Snake turned her into stone, but Luffy was able to convince S-Snake to undo the freezing, and Lilith remained unharmed. With all this considered, it's clear to me that Oda wants to preserve Lilith above all the other satellites. Even the original Stella himself has been killed before Lilith has even been injured. So it's very likely that Lilith may be the only Vegapunk left standing when it's all said and done, especially if you consider that recently all 5 of the Gorosei have been on Egghead causing havoc. It's very possible that the other satellites will be targeted by them so they can completely eliminate all the Vegapunks. But of course, I believe only Lilith will be the last one standing and the only one to board the Straw Hat ship. But okay, even if this is true, what makes her a Straw Hat rather than just being someone that travels with the crew? Well, I believe this dialogue from chapter 1090 gives us a clue as to why Oda has chosen her. In that chapter, Lilith, in reference to leaving Egghead, says, "To be honest, I'm a tad bit excited. This will be my first time leaving the island." See, not only is she traveling with the crew, she's not simply traveling to reach a destination. She is simply excited to leave the island and travel the world. Let's contrast this with people like Momo, Law, or Kinemon, for example, who merely traveled on the ship to reach a certain destination. With Law, it was Dressrosa. With Momo and Kinemon, it was Wano. The emphasis on them being on the ship is simply for Luffy to go help them reach their goal or reach their home island. But with Lilith, she is already leaving her island, and there is no contingency based on the destination that wouldn't allow her to continue traveling with the crew. See, the Straw Hats first and foremost are adventurers who abandon their home and are excited to see the world. This is a criteria that only Lilith has checked off the box in comparison to all the honorary Straw Hats. But okay, even if these reasons were convincing, I know some of you may be thinking, well, is she a good fit for the crew? This is perhaps the most convincing part of this theory because Lilith fits in almost perfectly. First and foremost, her personality is very similar to the rest of the chaotic crew, as I mentioned. One thing that I noticed about her is that she is emotionally expressive, more so than all the other Vegapunks. Her kind of overly emotional expressions remind me a lot of Sanji and Nami. Actually, side note, doesn't Lilith look like she could be the daughter of Nami and Sanji? Like the hair covering her eye, the orange hair, and the over-exaggerated faces? Maybe that's just me. Anyways, Lilith blends in perfectly with the crew, both in her eccentric personality as well as her thirst for adventure. But don't take it from my analysis alone, we can actually observe how she works with the crew in the recent chapters. The chapter that convinced me the most of this is in chapter 1105, where we see her and Brook in the Sunny arguing about how to stop the ship. Now pay attention to how she's arguing with Brook, just like any other Straw Hat would argue with one another. She even goes as far as hitting him in the head for being stupid. Now, if this dynamic wasn't made even more clear, in chapter 1110, we get more bickering from her and Brook, and this time she shoots for his crown jewels. I mean, she is literally handling it how Nami usually does when Brook bothers her. I'd be willing to bet her and Nami would get along really well. They even both like to plunder pirates out of their money, as we see in Lilith's introduction in Egghead. Two peas in a pod for real. But anyways, the answer to whether Lilith fits in the crew is a resounding yes. But what about her role? What will Lilith's role be on the Straw Hat crew? Well, that one is also easy. Although we have a shipwright, engineer, and doctor on the crew, we don't have yet a scientist. Who better to fit the role than someone who shares the consciousness of the greatest scientist of our generation, Dr. Vegapunk. Her knowledge on science would be so useful for the crew, especially when it comes to helping Frankie upgrade his tech. Can you imagine her remodeling Frankie, for example, because he is indeed in need of a true makeover. She can even help Usopp make more cool weapons for sniping, or better yet, make him a whole new sniper, which he is also in need of. She can also help Nami get her climb attack upgraded and use Zeus more efficiently. Having Lilith on the crew would boost their effectiveness tenfold, and honestly, her role on the crew would be one of the most important, especially as we enter the final saga and we go into Elbaf and we will have to read the books that O'Hara left behind. That's why Lilith is the perfect candidate. Not only is her ideologies and her personality more similar to the Straw Hats than any other candidates, but also her usefulness and her fit is perfect, and it adds a uniqueness that the other Straw Hat candidates didn't particularly add. That's why Lilith, Punk 02, Vegapunk will be the next Straw Hat pirate. That's the theory, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed watching and listening as always, and I hope to see you in the next middleweight theory. But before you go, check out my last theory on how Rox D. Zebek was a woman. See you there. Middleweight out, in a happy Women's History Month.